Hello, my students. Today we are going to learn history plays of Shakespeare, historical plays of Shakespeare. Shakespeare's histories. Shakespeare's history plays focus on English monarchs. They usually play upon Elizabethan propaganda, showing the dangers of civil war and glorifying the Queen's Tudor ancestors. The depiction of monarchs, including Richard III, an enemy of the Tudors, and Henry V, have been influential in creating a perception of these kings, which have persisted throughout the centuries. The history plays have been very powerful in presenting particular image which it is hard for many people to see past. The history plays are King John, Richard II, Henry IV, Part 1, Part 2, Henry V, Henry VI, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Richard III, and Henry VIII. The plays Coriolanus, Julius Caesar, and Antony and Cleopatra are classified both as tragedies and also as Roman history plays. 10 of the 36 plays published in Shakespeare's first folio of 1623 were classified as history plays. Most of the English history plays are based on Raphael Holinshed's Chronicles. First, most are set in times of medieval English history. The Shakespeare histories dramatize the Hundred Years' War with France. Second, in all his histories, Shakespeare provides social commentary through his characters and plots. Shakespeare's history plays often offer a view of society that cuts right across the system. They present with all characters, from lowly beggars to members of the monarchy. 10 plays classified under Shakespeare's history plays are as follows: Henry IV Part 1, Henry IV Part 2, Henry V, Henry VI Part 1, Henry VI Part 2, Henry VI Part 3, and Henry VIII, King John, Richard II, and Richard III. Let us move into the play Henry IV Part 1 as an example for Shakespeare's history plays. Introduction. Henry IV has two main plots that intersect in a dramatic battle at the end of the play. The first plot is about King Henry IV, his son Prince Harry, and their strained relationship. So the first plot is about Henry IV and his son Prince Harry and their strained relationship. The second part concerns a rebellion that is being plotted against King Henry, by a discontented family of noblemen in North, that is, the Percys, who are angry because of King Henry's refusal to acknowledge his debt to them. The play's scenes alternate between these two plots strands until they come together at the end of the play. The play begins in the midst of the tumultuous reign of the former Henry Bolingbroke, now King Henry IV. He hopes to launch a crusade over the Holy Land to establish strong kingship, but is preoccupied with battles with Wales and Scotland. Who are the characters in the play? Henry IV, King Henry IV, and Hal or Prince Harry. Prince Harry was shortly and sweetly called Hal, the Prince of Wales, commonly known as Hal, and the son and the heir to the throne of Henry IV. The Lord John of Lancaster, another son of King Henry IV. So he is the second son. And the Earl of Westmoreland, Sir Walter Blunt, Earl of Worcester, a rebel against Henry. Percy, the Earl of Northumberland, the brother of the Earl of Worcester and the rebel against King Henry. Hotspur, nickname for Henry, Percy, the son of Percy, but at first nobleman fighting for King Henry. He is later killed by Prince Hal at the Battle of Shrewsbury after he becomes a traitor. Lady Percy is Kate, the wife of Hotspur. Mortimer, Lord Edmund, also known as the Earl of March, and Lord Percy's brother. So these are the characters list. Okay, you read and understand that the relationship between the characters and what they are, where they are, and who they are. Okay, and let us move into the story part or the plot of the play Henry IV. Henry IV Part 1 deals with the struggle of Henry IV to maintain his control of English throne, which he usurped from Richard II. The play begins with the news that one of his commanders, Mortimer, has lost a battle in Glyndŵr in Wales. Another commander, Hotspur, has succeeded in defeating Douglas in Scotland, but refuses to send his prisoners back to the king. And here comes the summary of the play. Henry is very furious about this, since prisoners are a way of earning money through ransom. He orders Hotspur to yield the prisoners under threat of punishment. Hotspur, impulsive as always, tells his father Northumberland that he will never give up the prisoners. Worcester tells Hotspur that it would be smarter to turn over the prisoners, but at the same time from an alliance with Douglas and Glyndŵr, and thus raise an army with which to overthrow Henry IV. Hal, the affectionate name for Prince Harry, the son of King Henry, is a prodigal and madcap. He wastes his time in taverns with the lower classes of English society and spends a great deal of time with a fat nobleman named Falstaff. In the first act, Hal agrees to participate in a robbery in order to experience it. However, at the end of the scene and in soliloquy, Hal indicates to the audience that he is merely in disguise and that he fully expects to assume the reins of power in the near future. The thieves, led by Falstaff, carry out their robbery. Hal and Poins, another robber, play a trick on their thieves by robbing their money from Falstaff. The next night, in the tavern, Falstaff tells a roaringly funny tale about how he fought with many men before being defeated. Hal finally reveals the secret of the attackers to him, at which point Falstaff claims that he knew who it was all along, but that he did not wish to harm the Prince of Wales, Hal. The rebels, led by Hotspur, unite Douglas from Scotland and Glyndwr in Wales. Together with the Archbishop of York, they start to raise an army, gathering their forces at Shrewsbury. Hotspur does not get along well with Glyndwr, whom he views as being too mystical. The men also start to argue about how they will split up the territories, since Hotspur wants England, Douglas Scotland, and Glyndwr Wales. King Henry calls Hal into his throne room and begs his son to give his ways. Hal agrees to be more myself in the future. He immediately starts to prepare war with Hotspur. Henry assembles his own armies and starts moving towards Shrewsbury. Almost as a joke, Falstaff receives an infantry command from Hal, which is difficult for him since he is too fat to be able to walk very far. At Shrewsbury, King Henry offers to fully pardon the rebels if they decamp and return to their homes. Hotspur's agent Worcester fails to deliver this message to Hotspur because he is convinced that Henry will not honor the pardon. Thus, Hotspur feels trapped into fighting. To make matters worse, Glyndwr is unable to arrive on time, causing the rebels to have far fewer men than they had expected. At the same time, Northumberland falls ill and is unable to help rally his troops, and Hotspur, unable to wait any longer, decides to go ahead with the battle preparations anyway. Henry puts nobles on the field, dressed as himself as a form of protection. Douglas kills several of the impersonators before encountering Henry. The two men start to fight, but Hal arrives in time to save his father and chase Douglas away. Henry comments that he is sorry he ever doubted his son's abilities. Hal next encounters Hotspur. After a brief exchange of words, they start to fight with one another. While the two young men are fighting, Falstaff arrives and encourages Hal to have a victory. Douglas also arrives and attacks Falstaff, who soon falls down as if he were dead. Hal succeeds in killing Hotspur, but is sad that Falstaff also has been killed. No sooner does Hal depart than Falstaff gets back to his feet and stabs the body of Hotspur. He then picks up Hotspur and takes the credit for killing him. Hal cannot believe Falstaff's lies, but decides it is not worth arguing about. King Henry succeeds in winning the battle once the leaders are killed and captured. He sentences Worcester and Vernon to death for their failure to offer his pardon to Hotspur. Hal chooses to pardon Douglas and set him free, realizing that this is strategically necessary if he wants to rule Scotland in the future. Henry then splits his army into two parts, one of which will march on York and the other of which will attack Glyndwr. For the complex Prince Harry, honor seems to be associated with a noble behavior. For long stretches of time, Harry is willing to sacrifice the appearance of honor for the sake of his own goals, and confident that he can regain his honor at will. Harry's conception of honor is so all inclusive that he believes that Hotspur honor becomes his own. The legitimacy of rulership. Henry IV is set amid political instability and violent rebellion. The play is naturally concerned with the idea of rulership. The concept of legitimate rule is deeply connected in the play with the concept of rebellion. High and low language in the play. One of the characteristics that sets Henry IV, Part 1, from many of Shakespeare's other plays is that its transitions between scenes populated by nobility and scenes populated by commoners. One result of these transitions is that the play encompasses many different languages and manners of expressions. Opening with the monologue delivered by personified Roma, Henry IV Part 2 establishes its interest in lies right from the start. The play goes on to examine lies of many varieties from the collaborative population and white lies. And it is another theme. So lies and honesty and morality is one or the yet another themes in the play Henry IV Part 1. The play goes on to examine lies of many varieties from the collaborative and population wide lies. These lies are rumors passed from person to person to the calculated, individually conceived lies that are deceptions designed by a single character for a specific purpose. And disease is yet another theme of this play. Henry IV Part 1 is a play tainted by literal figurative diseases. Its characters are as sick of body as they are of soul, and its atmosphere as heavy with actual illness as its language is thick with illness metaphors. Henry IV, physical sickness stands at the heart of the play. So, the right to the throne is yet another theme in this play. The struggle for the English crown that drove the action in Henry IV Part 1 continues to power the plot of Henry IV Part 2 as the exhausted King Henry IV keeps on trying to defend his throne against the threatening band of rebels. Time is also one of the themes of Henry IV Part 1. In exploring disease and the right to the throne, Henry IV Part 1 also explores the theme of time through the aging body. The aging memories, interpretations of history, aside from being sick. King Henry IV is simply old. He complains frequently about his weary agedness and about the way the years have worn on him, rendering his boisterous, ambitious youth unrecognizable to his current self. Falstaff likewise struggles with his aging human. Warfare is another theme. Henry IV, Part 1, presented warfare as meaningless bloodshed devoid of grandeur, and Henry IV, Part 1, presents war in an unfavorable light. Yet, while Part 1 is extended, gruesome battle scenes illustrated war's senseless violence. This play focuses on war's other negative attributes. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoy this lesson on Henry IV, Part 1. Thank you.